Hey, so I just wanted to say a couple of things about this literary analysis essay. So I just wanted to emphasize again that what we're doing with this essay is we're trying to make an argument about the message you think the story is sending on a particular topic. Make sure you've looked at the literary analysis assignment sheet. It lays out some of the topics that I've suggested. There are other ones that you can use, those are suggested, but the most important thing is that you're making an argument about a message you think the story is sending. I want to say something about what I wrote for gender. So make sure you read all the notes that I posted. That's all the information that I would normally give you in class. I'm just either giving it to you, through one of these videos or through those notes. So check those out. The one I wrote about gender, though, I just wanted to touch on real quick. So when we're looking at the message about gender in the story, I think the first thing that we see, like I wrote, is that women are treated unfairly, right? We see what Eve has to deal with, what Mrs. Dorego has to deal with. But I wouldn't stop there. That's the one thing I've seen students do in the past a lot with this story is that, they want to write a paper about gender and they'll be like, oh, look at all the way the story shows us, sexism happening. It's like, yes, that's true, that's correct. But I don't think it's totally debatable, right? Saying that the story shows us women are treated unfairly, I don't think that's totally debatable. So I would try to push your thesis a little bit further if you're writing about gender in that way. Because Eve, Mrs. Dorego, Madam Queen, they're all treated unfairly because of their gender, but does it stop them? Does it make them give up their dreams? Eve, who wants to be a nurse, Mrs. Dorego wants to be a doctor, Madam Queen, her protesting. How do they react when they're faced with this sexism? Can women overcome it? I think was one of the things that I put on the assignment sheet. Because clearly they're not just beaten down by it, but we also don't know how successful any of them are either, right? All three of them are trying to get what they want, but in the story, but in what we have before the story ends, none of them are actually achieve what they're after. None of them are totally successful. There's still more that they have to do. There's still room for possible failure. So I think the message is very nuanced here. Just like I said with the message about protesting, you got to be very specific, very careful with the argument that you want to make when you're asking the question, what is the story trying to show us on this topic? So just make sure that you're thinking about it that way. Please send me some questions too. I know this is confusing. All right. So today I want to take a look at the issue of protesting in Independence Day by Sefiata. Okay, so protesting. So I think I had some questions on the assignment sheet about this. What is it trying to show us about protesting? Is it worth it? It doesn't work. Things like that. So I think the main place that we see protesting in the story is clearly back in Nigeria with Madam Queen and the other people of each town who are protesting against Summit Oil and their destruction of the environment and refusal to help the people or to cut them in on any of the money that they get from the oil. So I'm looking at page 13 here if you want to take a look at the story. Page 13 is where Madam Queen gives her big speech about how the oil companies are ruining the environment, poisoning the water, and everything like that. So then, after that, hearing that speech, Eve goes home, and she says to her mom, she says, I listened to Madam Queen today. I said, Mama frowned. Queen, yes, I said, she's speaking against the oil companies. Mama's reaction, that old drunk? So I think this is instructive for I think the perception of Madam Queen that she's kind of like a crazy old woman, that there's something wrong with her. She must be drunk, like Eve's mom says here. I think a lot of this comes from the fact that she does protest, that she does speak out against the oil companies, against the injustice here. And I think it's kind of like always what happens, with people who protest anything. They kind of get given a hard time. Going on a little bit here, Papa raised this pinch of snuff. Yes, indeed, Queen does that. She speaks the truth about the foreigners in our land. She has their blood, and she detests them. She is fearless, that woman. He sniffed and sneezed, just like a man. So here, Eve's father, who actually agrees with Madam Queen, right? He's also skeptical of the oil companies and thinks that the foreigners are doing a disservice to Nigeria. He says that Madam Queen is just like a man. That's like the best compliment that he can give here, right? Is that she's acting manly. Wow, well, what a great compliment. Thank you so much. Wow. So I think we can see with both of these together, just that there's the impression that there's something like not feminine about protesting. So going on, Mama pouted. That's why she can't keep a man. That's Eve's mother's response. So both of Eve's parents kind of point to the fact that there's something wrong with a woman who protests. So this, has a tie-in with the gender topic here as well, for sure. I think a lot of the topics for the story go together. So I think the story is showing us here what happens to people who protest. They get called names, they get made fun of, people don't like them, they get kind of ostracized. It's kind of like how there's always that one person at a party that wants to talk about like politics or like serious stuff. Do people like that person? No, I think everyone hates that person. I would know. I was that person. So I think we can see that with Madam Queen here, where she really has to deal with like a bunch of shit, because of her political beliefs, because of her willingness to speak out against the oil companies. Moving now to the bottom on page 14. So here's just some more stuff on what happens to people who protest. So at the bottom of page 14, we get this from Eve. She says, "Yes, I heard about the Ugoni people, how they protested against Shell. Security forces came and shot at them, burned down their homes, beat up women and children." Um, so Shell, an oil company I think we are more familiar with in New Jersey than the Summit Oil that they usually talk about in the story. But Shell was definitely one of the biggest offenders there. I actually have a podcast I'm putting up for a coming future class that talks about Shell's involvement in Nigeria and all the problems that they caused. So we'll get some real world context there. And also Ken Sarawiwa, I had a reading from him, so that also gives us some of the real world context here. But yeah, just like it says here, security forces came, shot at them, burned down their homes, beat up women and children. Obviously, on the next page, there's kind of a longer account of some of the atrocities the government visits upon the people because of their protesting. People being killed, being shot at, being beat, a pregnant woman who gets beat up and miscarries, awful stuff, right? And then this paragraph ends with Eve saying, "I've never demonstrated in my life. Why would I?" And I think we kind of see what Eve's getting at here. It's extremely dangerous, right? Especially in Nigeria, which was a country in the 90s that was going through dictatorships and kind of military rule. And they were not afraid to crack down on the people, usually in order to help the oil companies or the multinational corporations that the people were protesting again. If the people tried to shut down oil production, it's not that the oil company would come back at them, their own government would come back at them. Why? Because they had deals with the oil companies. They were all in on the money, and they were cutting the people out. So the story shows us that your own friends and people might not like it if you protest. They might think that you're doing too much, or that you're being unnecessary. They're actually causing more problems or things like that. And there's also the physical violence that people could experience from protesting. So I think the story right here shows us kind of the consequences. If our question is, what is the story trying to show us about protesting? The first thing it shows us is that there's a lot of consequences, sometimes extremely serious consequences. I don't think that's it on this message, though. So let's see how it continues throughout the story. So I think the next part of the story that gives us, that adds something to this message about protesting is the very end. So I'm looking at the last page here on page 17. So in this scene, Mrs. Dorego calls Eve up from the basement, and she shows her a picture of Eve's mother and a lot of the other women from the town, um, you know, protesting, and that they've forced Summit Oil to negotiate with them, is the picture that she shows her. Um, so Eve sees all the people that she knows there, and then the story says, Mrs. Dorego hugs me. They've brought Summit Oil's operations to a standstill. Can you imagine? Can you? The company is negotiating with them. See? The women are dressed in traditional attire, lace blouses, plaid wrappers, head ties. They are waving palm leaves. Mrs. Dorego hugs. Her body feels warm. Why am I afraid, I think? We hold each other for a while, and then I pull back and affirm the union of women. So I think that line really kind of summarizes where the message with protesting is in this scene. Affirm the union of women. So I think what we see here is really kind of an image of solidarity, which means coming together, sticking up for people, right? For people you have something in common with. So we get kind of a positive image of protesting here. Their protest seems to be successful so far. The company has shut things down. They're going to negotiate with the women. They didn't sick the police on them. Maybe because it was women and they were doing it peacefully and they had children with them and all this kind of stuff. But they're going to negotiate with them. So it's really kind of a high note to end on for these protesters here. They seem to be doing pretty well. Uh, so and then we have Eve and Mrs. Dorego really showing only like one of the only moments of them coming together and like being really friendly towards each other and showing any kind of warmth towards each other is when they hug here, because they're both Nigerian women. So these Nigerian women fighting against the oil company, they feel like they're a part of that. They feel solidarity with that. They feel connected because of that. So what's the message on protesting here? Well, now it seems like it could kind of work. Before they showed us all the consequences. It's dangerous. People might get mad at you. People might, cast you out from society, things like that. But also it could possibly work. But I don't know if we should take this to be that positive, right? Because it says the company's going to negotiate with them. I think that's important. The company hasn't agreed. Oh yeah, we'll stop polluting so much. We'll stop ruining the rivers. We'll make sure that the animals are able to live. We'll stop spilling oil over the place. We'll give you some money that the oil's making. They don't say any of that. That's not what the women get. So I think it's still an open question whether the oil company is really going to give the women the things that they're looking for. I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think that? How do you think these negotiations are going to go for them? I guess is the question. My answer would probably be not totally well. They probably will not get everything they want just because of how these things normally happen with giant corporations, right? They don't usually give in to what townspeople want. But I could be wrong. Maybe there's not totally reason to think that. But it does end on this high note, right? So it's not like a simple message. It's not like, oh, just stand up for what you believe and you'll get it every time. It's not something very simple like that, right? If we're, again, asking the questions, what is it trying to show us about protesting? It doesn't say it's easy and you'll get it done. It also doesn't say that it's totally pointless and you'll just get yourself killed. It's kind of more nuanced than that, right? And I think that's the way for a lot of the messages in the stories, that they're kind of a little bit of two things. So what I would encourage you to try to do is try to figure out, okay, well, what exactly is the message? What specifically is the story trying to show us about this? Is protesting worth it? Why is it worth it? What are some of the drawbacks to it? I think these are all things that could be part of an essay about protesting in the story. So yeah, I think that's what I have there. Thanks for listening.